As a reporter who covered the 2016 Bernie Sanders campaign and now a member of Andrew Yang's digital team, I found myself wooed by the similarities between Bernie's now historic 2016 run and Yang's 2020 bid. First, let's start with the mainstream media bias against both campaigns. Not much needs to be said about the media's Bernie blackout of 2016, but what's going on in the 2020 primary is not much better. Andrew Yang, despite being one of only 10 candidates to qualify for the September debate, is garnering far less media coverage than his polling or his fundraising would suggest. Yang receives fewer TV news mentions than candidates like Delaney, Williamson, Hickenlooper, and Gillibrand, two of whom have dropped out of the race and none of whom have qualified for the September debate that Yang seemed to make with ease.
MSNBC strikes again.
MSNBC and CNN have been particularly egregious at excluding Yang from their infographics and replacing him with much lower polling candidates.
You can clearly see here that in these graphics, Andrew Yang is the 8th spot in each one of these polls, and they conveniently leave him off. And then there's this.
A lot of attention is going to be on that Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden dynamic. And then, of course, those other candidates, folks, you look again, who else is on that stage with the former vice president, with Bernie Sanders? Andrew Yang, Kristen, my screen just went out.
Yet despite his limited media coverage, Yang is still polling ahead of candidates like Castro and O'Rourke. Shunned by the media, Yang has had to seek other means of getting his message out there. Taking a page out of Bernie's 2016 playbook, Yang turned to social media and podcasts to boost his name recognition. The relative ease with which Yang is picking up debate qualifying polls, despite receiving such little TV coverage, is a testament to his rock star status on social. The eventual Democratic nominee will need to be rock solid on social media, since the Democrats, who have sworn off super PACs, will need a grassroots movement in order to stay competitive against Trump and all of his big money. In just 5 days after the second Democratic debate, where Yang hit his breakout moment, the campaign hauled in 1.1 million. 34,602 out of the 38,376 donors who gave in that 5-day window were giving to Yang for the very first time. I'll repeat that. 87% of the donors who gave to Yang after the debate had never given to him before. Yet despite this, Yang received less speaking time at that debate than any other candidate on the debate stage. In terms of website traffic, Sanders still leads the field, followed by Warren and then Yang. That's right, Yang has surpassed former VP Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in website traffic. He's also quickly expanding the size of his social media following. After that second debate, Yang accumulated more new Twitter followers than any other candidate on either night of the debate. Again, it's important to note, Yang spoke less than any other candidate, indicating that when he does speak, interest in him goes through the roof. Like Sanders, Yang has built a strong, loyal online fundraising apparatus, which for both campaigns goes hand in hand with a high number of small dollar donations. And according to a brand new analysis from the Washington Post, while Sanders still has the most loyal donors in the race, with 80% giving exclusively to him, Yang follows closely behind. These two candidates are dominating the rest of the field in terms of loyalty. Both Sanders and Yang can broaden the Democrats' coalition in the general election by winning back former Trump voters. Recent polls have found that Sanders and Yang are the most popular candidates of the entire Democratic field among former Trump voters. A small detail if you want to win in 2020. Like Trump for that matter, both Sanders and Yang entered their first presidential primary polling at virtually zero, so most people never took them seriously. While Sanders, the 2020 candidate, now polls in the high double digits, his first run at the presidency was a different story entirely. In 2015, multiple polls from CNN and Fox found support for Sanders at anywhere from 2 to 3%. Yang's already surpassing that 2 to 3% threshold that Bernie started at, and most Americans have still never heard of him yet. Both Sanders and Yang have been underdogs ever since they entered their respective races. Often mocked by the media as fringe candidates, both have persevered in forcing mainstream conversations around their trademark policies. Medicare for all for Sanders and universal basic income, or the freedom dividend, for Yang. Yang is raising the alarm in America about the threat artificial intelligence poses as it continues to eat through the most common jobs in our economy.
UBI, do you know how many people are Googling UBI now?
Now that most Democratic candidates are talking about the issues Bernie's talking about, there's only one candidate talking about the issues nobody else is talking about. That's Yang. That was Bernie in 2016. That's why the Yang Gang is so loyal. They see Yang not as their best shot in 2020, but as their only shot. Both Sanders and Yang are highly skilled communicators, adept at simplifying really complex messages into catchy lines that seem to stick. Go to a Sanders or a Yang rally, and you're gonna find supporters reciting their candidates' stump speeches, almost finishing their sentences like they're telepathically bound.
How much did Amazon pay in federal taxes last year?
Both Sanders and Yang are political outsiders. Yang more than Sanders, arguably, since Yang has never held elected office, while Sanders, the longest-serving independent in congressional history, has spent much of his career as an outsider working on the inside. Americans are sick of slick politicians. That's part of why Donald Trump's political incorrectness resonates. That's why voters don't care about Bernie's uncombed hair or Yang not wearing a tie at the debates. They just want a problem solver, someone who can get the job done, someone who's not full of shit. Both Sanders and Yang are exactly what the Democratic Party isn't: authentic.
I mean, whether you agree with their views or not, at least they feel like they're being their authentic selves and pushing ideas and views that they actually care about. People are clearly responding
And that's
to
exactly
that.
what Trump was in the Republican debates in 2016.
With Sanders and Yang, you know exactly what you're getting. You know they're fighting for what they believe in because both have been pushing policies long before those policies were popular or even part of the debate. Both Sanders and Yang offer Democrats a real opportunity to beat Trump, not only because they're addressing the problems that got Trump elected in the first place, but because they can both engage voters across the political spectrum. Based on these 10 reasons, Yang is to 2020 what Sanders was to 2016. The only candidate talking about issues no other candidate would. A Sanders-Yang ticket is the Democrats' best chance to win in 2020. The similarities between their campaigns are the very winning qualities Democrats need on their 2020 ticket. To defeat Trump once and for all, the DNC needs a ticket with two candidates who are authentic, social media savvy outsiders who can inspire the politically disengaged. Sanders and Yang both fit the bill, but something tells me the DNC would rather hand Trump another election than complete the political revolution that Sanders started.